Hey guys, welcome back. It's Ripe again, back with more Just Know HOA stories. The Homeowner Association title story starts like this. My homeowner association is made up of a lot of nosy people that cannot seem to mind their own business for 2 seconds. I know that the entire point is them being aware of what people are doing in order to benefit the community or something like that. However, these people are only interested in gossip and picking on people that are not in their little group of friends. I swear, they get some kind of sick enjoyment out of going up to people and threatening them over the most minor things. For example, one of my neighbors has an American flag on his property, and of course when it gets windy, it might end up slightly crooked. The HOA once told him that it being crooked was a serious offense and he could be fined hundreds of dollars. Total lie, but he got scared and nervous, which I think is just what they enjoy. Another thing they tend to do is only enforce the fines that they care about, which seem to be only the aesthetic things. So if a house's paint is chipped or a shingle falls off or if the grass is not green enough, you can expect them to come knocking at your door. Or they will mail you a fine for your home being in a bad state. If any of you have seen the movie Mean Girls, it's basically that. However, they are full-grown adults, so any small amount of charm is lost. I live in a part of the country where we get hurricanes, but usually after the point of them being extremely bad. They will hit other states on the coast first and most of the time just be bad storms when they get to us. This one time we actually got hit with one of the hurricanes and the entire thing was really bad. Since I'm on medication that requires electricity and it was predicted we would lose it, we drove away from the storm in advance. We went to my mother-in-law's place, which is out of the range of the bad part of the storm, to wait it all out. Before we left, we did everything recommended, like boarded up the windows in case of one breaking. Turning off the gas and whatever else we were supposed to do that I cannot remember offhand. While I was at my mother-in-law's house, we kept getting emails from the HOA. Not directly to us, but part of it like a mass email thing. They were apparently angry at people for boarding up their windows and taking other measures for safety. For the sole reason they were making the homes look ugly. We all read it and just laughed about it. My mother-in-law calling them crazy and glad we were not having to be there in person dealing with them. The day of the storm, more emails came in of them telling people that if any downed branches or basement floods were not dealt with within 48 hours, there would be major fines. Like seriously, people were in potential danger and they were acting like this. At this point, I had no idea about the state of my house and enjoyed just being safe for the time being. I had a roof over my head, my medication, and as a bonus, some of my mother-in-law's amazing cooking. Once roads were clear and it was confirmed we had power in our neighborhood, we went to go check on the house. Driving around, we saw various types of damage. Homes near the bottom of big hills ended up getting flooded. Trees had branches break off or sometimes entire trees uprooted. Broken windows, broken doors, broken siding, and a lot of garbage that got blown around. When we saw our house though, I did not breathe for a second. A huge oak tree had fallen right into our roof, smashing it in. Plus, another side of our house got damaged to the point that it needed to be fully rebuilt. The inside of the home had water from the holes and a lot of stuff was just destroyed. It was horrible and I knew that the home was not going to be liable for a while. Even just getting the insurance to come and take a look at things would take a few days. Our only option was to take pictures, safely dig out anything we could that wasn't damaged and go back to my mother-in-law's house. My husband was on the phone with her explaining everything when one of the HOA women came by and saw the destruction. HOA? Wow, it sure did a number on your house there. That's a lot to clean up. Me? Yeah, I know. At least nobody got hurt though. We can always just rebuild. HOA? Yes, well, we are gonna send an email out talking about the process for rebuilding. Just remember that the tree and water damage need to get taken care of by tomorrow if you don't want us to fine you. Me? We are not doing anything until the insurance company sends somebody out to look at these things. We have no idea how safe and secure the rest of the foundation even is. I can say for 100% certainly that this will not get taken care of in a day. HOA, don't say nobody told you. She walked away and I was pissed off from what she had said. Nobody in the neighborhood that had flood or other damages were getting it fixed within that small amount of time. I had doubts that there was any rule about what they were saying. Even if it did exist though, you can be sure that something like a natural disaster would pause their stupid rules. I was fuming the entire car ride back to my mother-in-law's house. Just want to note that her kindness was the saving grace to my sanity over this entire thing. My husband is a saint and gets it directly from her. We did get an email talking about all the things we were and were not allowed to do when rebuilding our home, along with having to send the HOA the blueprints of what we wanted to do for approval. I know there are town and HOA rules about sizing and a lot of other small things, so I figured it was just standard stuff. That was when the way too long process of rebuilding the damaged part of our home started. After the insurance took a look, we hired a contractor and told him we wanted it to be as close to as it was before. We submitted the blueprints to the HOA and heard back that those plans went against the rules and we had to change it. I did not know how it was wrong because it was essentially the exact same thing that we had before. We kept making slight tweaks and getting rejected over and over until what was left was the most bare-bones design ever. For reference, before it was destroyed, that room had some features that I loved about it, one of them being a skylight so I could get natural light when I was sitting there and reading. Another being the corner of that room, also the corner of the house being rounded almost like a castle tower. What we were left with was a basic rectangle as the new side of our home. I really did not like it, but keep in mind that with all the rejections it had been a couple of months and we hadn't been able to even start construction yet. Also, being a couple hours away just was not feasible anymore and we had to be closer for our jobs and for the contractors. We ended up renting a place and having to put a big dent in our savings to pay for it. Once construction started, you would think finally things were headed in the right direction. Nope, the HOA was down our necks almost every day about the construction being against HOA policy. They could not even be more specific about that and instead were constantly trying to halt any progress being made on repairing our house. Finally, we told them to give us a reason for the construction being against policy or we were gonna report them. Finally, they pulled an excuse out of their rear. They claimed that since we had unpaid HOA dues, we could not do any construction on the house. These fines were the ones for the tree and water damage. We had not even officially gotten them, but should have paid them anyway. Cue a lot more arguing and then finally agreeing to drop those fines as a show of good faith, when in reality we knew that they didn't actually give anybody those fines because the rules did not even exist in the first place. What should have taken about a month took closer to 4 because of all the trouble they'd been giving us. I was stressed beyond anything in my life and was ready to just give up honestly. I could not handle the mixture of trying to get our house repaired and stuff replaced with these women acting like I was in the wrong all the time. That does not even take into account the amount of gaslighting they would constantly do when I happened to run into them. Talking about how I should have had the trees checked ahead of time or that I should have been home and able to save more of my things. They were trying to make me feel like something out of my control was my fault the entire time, but finally the construction was done and we were able to move back into our home. The water was cleaned out and we got the okay from the electrical company to turn everything back on. The place was not even close to 100%, but we could not keep affording the other place to stay in the meantime. We still had to paint the outside of the house that got destroyed and get some work on the floors done. We were able to move back in and then the HOA had finally broken the last piece of my patience I had for them. We got a massive fine in the mail stating that our home does not meet the standards of beauty for the neighborhood. That the house being unpainted and shingles needing to be replaced ruined the entire neighborhood. Following that with a fine for $300 and a notice of the fine being daily until we are up to par of the HOA standards. They were also stating that they would sue us if we did not pay the fines on time. I was shouting the longest string of obscenities I think I ever have in my entire life, which says a lot because I'm not shy when it comes to using colorful language. So I got a lawyer and laid out for him everything that happened between the storm and now. At this point, the storm happened about 6 months ago and we really expected things to be back to somewhat normal by then. He needed time to look over the letters they sent up and the emails from them we saved and of course the HOA laws. I wanted more than to just get them to back off and drop the fines though. I wanted to make them pay for all the stress they had caused me over the last half year. It was going to take time, but we were not gonna leave a single stone left unturned. The first thing that they did was send a letter to the HOA about the $300 a day fine for our house being unkempt. using the wording of their own HOA bylaws that stated as long as the homeowner was in the process of renovation or fixing a home, no fines can be written on the appearance of the home until such renovations are complete. Basically, they cannot fine us for the house being ugly until we are actually done fixing it, and their lawyer wrote back to mine stating that if we provided proof of hiring a painter and a roofer, then they would drop the fine. We were not nearly done with them yet though, that was just the tip of the iceberg of what they were gonna get from us. We filed a lawsuit against the HOA for hauling illegal construction, intimidation, threats and rejection of building plans that were within code. It sounds like a lot, but many of these things overlaid on top of everything. I'm gonna go over more in order of the story rather than the order things got resolved in court. So first was about the emails they sent everybody about threatening and intimidating people with fines for protecting their homes and then not taking care of the debris fast enough. Not only was it not a rule, but it went against state procedure where we are actually supposed to do what we did. Contact the insurance and electrical company to make sure things are safe to touch before clearing anything out. While laws about downed trees and broken windows needing to be fixed within 48 hours, that doesn't apply to damage done from a natural disaster like a hurricane. The big one I want to talk about though is how they were rejecting our plans until it was the most simple plan in the world. While yes, they are building codes to follow within the HOA, we fell under an exception. If a specific part of a home was destroyed from any kind of accident, we had the right to restore it to its original state regardless of what current HOA rules stated. As long as nothing was a fire or safety concern, this meant that the months of rejections and me not getting my skylight and tower look back was totally illegal. We wanted retribution for the extra months of rent we had to pay from them delaying the construction. In addition, we wanted them to pay for that part of the house to be rebuilt to the original blueprints that were wrongfully denied. The HOA snobs and their lawyer seemed really confident that we were not gonna get everything. Sure, maybe a little bit of money, but no way our house to have more construction done the old way. We actually ended up getting everything and the HOA was found to have knowingly done all of this. They had to give us the big payout and fix our home. Most of the money, to be fair, went to the lawyer in trying to replace things for our house that the insurance was not gonna cover. At the end though, we still ended up with a lot less in our bank account than we started with. What we got though was the HOA being in a dangerous place financially. They were drowning for money and suddenly without there being money in the HOA, all of those women wanted to drop out of their positions, aka all of those Karens. The issue was that nobody wanted to pick them up and fix the mess that they had made. Nobody wants to become the captain of a ship that is already sinking. The HOA got shut down after nobody was willing to help run it after that. The final nail in the coffin of the HOA was the class action lawsuit from the rest of the neighborhood about feeling threatened and intimidated by their stupid emails and getting fines for things that didn't exist. There was no way for it to hold up after that and it was gone. At the end of the day, I had enough stress over an 8-month period to age me about 10 years. I really hope our house never gets that kind of damage again, but at least I know there won't be an HOA to make it worse. And wow, ripe stars, I gotta say, having a hurricane destroy your house is already bad enough, but then having an HOA that constantly breathes on your neck is even worse probably. I'm really glad that OP got out of this HOA nightmare and I really hope that OP never has to deal with an HOA in their life ever again. If you enjoy the HOA stories, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even leave a comment if you want to support me. Thank you so much. And the next one is a story from r/am_I_the_jerk. I, 59 male, live in a major city in Ontario, Canada. I live in a small subdivision and have 5 neighbors total on my street. For the past few years during the winter when we were getting a lot of snow or bad storms, as I am leaving for my overnight shift at around 8 to 9 p.m, I will put my wife's windshield wipers up on her car and do a quick walk around to my other 5 neighbors and put their windshield wipers up on their cars as well. Obviously not if they are outside or something, but if it looks like they're in for the night. Many of them forget to do this as many of them have children and it typically slips their mind and their wipers will be frozen to their car in the morning. And by the way, ripe stars, I am so glad that I don't live in a climate anymore where things can freeze. I still have trauma from getting up at like 5:30 a.m. and having to clear the car from ice and snow. Anyway, it's just something nice I like to do to look out for my neighbors. They are all always grateful of this and thank me for it. Many of them started doing it too, and there will be nights where I forget to do it and my wife forgets it too, and in the morning one of the neighbors has done it for us. Anyway, recently one of our neighbors moved and a new family moved in as of last week. It's a young couple and there are 2 young children. The other night I was leaving for my overnight shift at around 9 p.m. It was snowing really heavy and we were supposed to be getting almost 30 centimeters of snow and it was freezing out. So I put my wife's wipers up and do my usual quick walk around to the other neighbors as well. I was hesitant when I reached my new neighbor's house as I've only introduced myself once but did it anyway. As I was putting the second wiper up on their pickup truck, the husband came charging out of his front door yelling, "Hey, what the F are you doing to my truck?" I tried to explain to him that I was just putting his wipers up to help him. He continued to scream at me to "Get the hell out of my property and don't touch my shit again." The wife then came out and started yelling at me too. I apologized and started walking away. Some of my other neighbors heard the commotion and came outside to see what was happening. They tried explaining to him too that it's just something we do. Both of them were not having it though. Fast forward to this morning, I'm arriving home from my overnight shift and as I'm walking in, I see the wife of this couple struggling outside to break the eyes off the windshield wipers of the truck. I guess she was trying to take her kids to school and the wipers were frozen solid on the car. She sees me and yells over, "Hey there! Do you mind giving me a hand, please?" I look over to her and yell back, "No, sorry, I thought I was to never touch your crap again, ma'am," and walk back inside. She yelled back at me, "Wow, a-hole." I told my wife about this and she thinks I should have helped her because she was just trying to get her kids to school. I disagree as I was just following what they told me. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Do you think that OP is the a-hole or not? Personally, I would say that OP is 1000% not the a-hole, because if you yell at someone and treat them like this when they try to help you, then you don't deserve the help from them again. Anyway, someone on Reddit said, "Not the a-hole, I understand if they just saw a random person touching their vehicle and freaking out." However, once you explained and the neighbors also explained to clear up the misunderstanding, they really should have apologized. They got what they deserved with frozen wipers in the morning. Comment 2, not the a-hole, bad karma as a witch. She just found out what happens when you bite a helpful hand. This one is titled, Photo Revenge with a Family. We lived in Japan for 2 fantastic years and one of the things my kids loved to do was to go to the Universal Studios Japan, particularly the Sanrio area. The kids cannot get enough of Hello Kitty and apparently neither can grown-ass adults. Midday at the park, they dress some poor soul as Hello Kitty to come out and greet the horde of fans. That day, there were probably 100 plus people surrounding the mascot. Well, my kids wanted a picture with the huge furry feline, so I sighed, got in the back of the line and patiently waited. We were finally next in line when a middle-aged woman dressed in cat attire cut in front of my 6-year-old and me. We were shocked and did not immediately react. Was this grown-up seriously cutting in front of a line of children? Then, before I had a chance to say anything, she turned around and asked me to take her picture with Hello Kitty. I could hear a chorus of grumbling behind us. At this point, I was ready to throw her iPhone into the fountain, but I thought for a second, smiled and agreed. I took multiple pictures in portrait and landscape modes, each time coaching her for the cutest pose. A few people behind us were gleefully watching over my shoulder as I either put my finger over her face or cut her head off every single photo. Middle-aged cat lady thanked me and left so she could check the photos away from the crowd. We then took our photos with the cat, they turned out great, and as we walked away, we saw the lady angrily scrolling through her photos. The mascot's allotted time was also up about that time, so she did not have a chance to go back and retake her photos. And the next one is titled, I will teach you how to maliciously comply. We all do stupid stuff in our 20s. Well, for me, it was moving into a shoddy apartment with my fellow mental health risk friend. We were both well aware that we may have to break lease at some point, so we found an apartment that was just barely within price range and had the option to break the lease early, and it was okay at first. There was linoleum peeling up in the bathroom, and if we did not wipe down the windowsills and particularly the far corner ceiling of my bedroom, then we would get mold. However, this is Oregon, and as a food stamp family, as I was called in school, I am familiar with mold. No biggie. Then our washer, which we were paying an extra $100 a month to have in our unit, started leaking. We put in a maintenance request and tack on the peeling linoleum as well, since they'd already be in our unit to fix the washer. They patched up the washer and did a half-assed job repairing the patch of linoleum. A month later, the linoleum, since they had not actually fixed the underlying problem of the peeling linoleum, it had come up again, the corner sliced my foot open, and the bathroom sink, washer and dishwasher all had problems of one kind or another. They came in again and said that if we wanted them to fix that patch again, it would cost $450 to replace the whole floor. The patch was like a 2-foot square, so that just never got repaired. 2 months, 3 hospital trips for my ex-roommate, a still broken dishwasher that was unusable, a leaky washer, and a close call later. Roommate has POTS, fell down the stairs. We put in a request for accommodation to be released to our respective parents on the grounds of mental and physical disability. They denied the request, simply offering to move us to a downstairs apartment. They don't want to let us out of this lease, even though my roommate had attempted to end his life twice and almost cracked her head on the stairs. Fine, malicious compliance incoming. I went through the lease agreement to figure out how much it would be to break the lease. And I quote, "Fee to break this lease is $1.50, 1.5 times rent if left blank." So someone either messed up the paperwork or figured that no one would read it. So I put in a 30-day notice of intent to move out. With $1.50 worth of quarters in the envelope, aftermath, they tried to tell us we could not move out because it is 1.5 times the rent, not $1.50. They threatened us with lawyers, called their bluff, suggested they reread the lease agreement they signed, paid my half of the repairs, and have not heard from them in like 3 months. I'm still keeping all the emails and such in case I get a letter from a lawyer, but still have zero intention to pay that 1.5 times the rent. And the next one is titled Malicious Compliance at the Workplace. I recently started working at a company specializing in high-end CNC work. Think aerospace, automotive, and defense contracts that run in 3 shifts 24 hours a day so they can keep the machines running. This is not my malicious compliance, but rather past compliance that I was told about that I am now reaping the benefits of. When I started, I was told that employees were free to take their 30-minute paid lunch whenever they wanted. How nice, I thought, a company that is not micromanaging. After talking with some of the old-timers, I discovered the reason this policy was put back into place. Some background first. A CNC machine is essentially an automated mill. You stick a metal billet or a casting into it, it does some magic, and a machine part is created. Lots of cuts made, holes drilled and taped, all very precisely. This process can take minutes or hours based on how much/how precise machining takes place. Generally, the more expensive the part, the more time spent on the machine. The story is that a new manager was hired several years ago and immediately set about improving production. Apparently, part of their grand plan was having everyone take their lunches at exactly the same time so as to provide accountability. Since everyone was taking lunches at various times, the theory was that people taking 32 minutes instead of 30 was costing productivity and thus could be improved. No one actually had any record of these 32-minute breaks, but they must have been going on, right? Since most of the processes took longer than 30 minutes, people would take their breaks so that they had just placed a part in, went on their lunch and then came back to continue the job, mostly checking that the previously made part was within tolerance, as the CNC machine worked through the time spent on break. The new system meant that people would take their lunches and the machines were left in downtime. The most dreadful thing an owner can imagine. No one there put new parts into the machine, which means machines not running. Which in return means parts not being completed, which means money not being made. People would stop work at precisely lunchtime regardless of if the machine would stand idle without a part to work on. Machinists would arrive precisely 30 minutes later to start up again. Since the longer processes were the most affected, the most expensive parts were the heaviest hit. Production slumped, shipments got delayed, customers were angry, and eventually the new manager was fired. The policy was returned to its original, take it whenever, just please don't let the machine stop form. And yeah guys, as you can hear in the background, Disney is crying, so that means the video has to come to an end. Thank you very much for watching, I hope to see you again tomorrow.